Good afternoon and welcome to STS GE Conversations. I think most of you have received the invitation from the Office of the Vice President of Academic Affairs, and therefore we will not go through the objectives and the program and etc. anymore. But for now, the focus of our conversation is on sharing. How did you teach STS in your CU, especially in the context of the pandemic? Right. To whet your appetite, we have panel members who will share some specific experiences, and from then on, we do the very spontaneous, very candid exchanges of ideas and question and answer maybe. So let me flash now who are the team in our panel. Okay, I'm Ruth Gamboa, a professor of biology here at UP Mindanao. Maayong hapon sa tanan. I have been teaching STS for many semesters now, and I was part of that team when STS was revised in 2018. Right. First to share is Professor Rene Rollon, and then he will be followed by Victor Romero from UP Tacloban. I'm sorry, Sir Rene is from UP Diliman. Then Professor Alvaro Calara from UPLB will also share. Then Professor Miguel Antonio Catalig of UP Manila. And then Professor Zarco from UP Diliman. He is not an STS guy. He's from DR Maps, but they believe that DR Maps is closely associated with STS. Then to give us a synthesis of our conversation is Professor or Dr. Jack Medrano. Let me take a few minutes in introducing each one of them. So Professor Rene Rollon is a professor at the Institute of Environmental Science and Meteorology, College of Science, UP Diliman. His research interests cover fields of aquatic ecosystems, coastal marine biology, and ecology, among others. He has served as IESM director in the past years and is currently the program director of the Science and Society Program, or SSP, of the College of Science, UP Diliman. Professor Victor Romero II is Assistant Professor of Computer Science at the Division of Natural Sciences and Mathematics, University of the Philippines, Visayas, Tacloban College. He is the current administrator of the UPVTC Regional Environmental Information Systems Program, which supports the college in achieving its tripartite function of teaching, research, and extension by serving as the Geographic Information Systems Laboratory of the college. He has a very interesting trivia to share on how he got into STS. Next, we have Professor Alvaro Calara. He is currently an assistant professor at the Division of Sociology, Anthropology, Psychology of the Department of Social Sciences, UP Los Baños. He joined UPLB in 2017, but has been teaching for almost 13 years, His research interests include multi-sectoral societies, environment, and youth studies. Then we have Professor Miguel Antonio Catalig. He has been a lecturer at the Department of Physical Sciences and Mathematics in UP Manila since 2012. And he has been handling STS in the same CU since 2014. His favorite topics to discuss in STS are the philosophies of science and energy. And then we have Professor Mark Zarco, who is the head of the Geotechnical Engineering Group, Institute of Civil Engineering, UP Diliman. Dr. Zarco has taught 3 general education courses, which include Engineering Sciences 10, STS, where he talks about the challenges of building civil works in a hazardous environment, and MAPS, of course, they are MAPS, disaster risk mitigation, adaptation, and preparedness strategies. His current researches are in the area of assessment and mitigation of risk related to geohazards. Then to give us a synthesis or to wrap up our conversation, we will have Dr. Jack Medrana. He is a registered physician, but currently he is preparing to finish his PhD in archaeology at UP Diliman. He has been a faculty of the University of the Philippines, but presently he is a lecturer at the Department of Biology, College of Science, UP Baguio. All right. To anticipate connectivity problems, our panel members have prepared videos of their sharing. So may I now call on Professor Rene Rollon of UP Diliman. Sir Rene?
Hello, good afternoon. Pero ipi-play lang ba?
Hi, Steph.
Hi, Steph. So, magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Ako nga po si Rene Rollon sa College of Science, and I'm going to share something for the STS implementation. STS1 implementation sa UP Diliman. Let me just share my slides. Yeah, so I'm going to show some statistics later, pero the challenges in the implementation of STS in UP Diliman can really be summarized into here. 4 points. So mula nung naging STS1 siya, tumaas lalo ang demand, yung enrollment, at super challenge pagdating ng pandemic. No? And then also we have challenge with regards to teachers. Kasi nga, maski naka ilang teacher orientation workshops na kami. Meron pa ring hesitant because STS1 being really multidisciplinary, maraming teachers na feeling teaching this course is really beyond their comfort zone. So, ayan, and then dati bago mag-pandemic, class sizes malalaki, and therefore yung availability of classrooms challenge din. Buti na lang lagi kami nakakahiram sa Vanguard, sa Triple E, sa Economics, para mag-conduct ng classes, big classes. And then even with that, maski ba may classroom, yung class size in terms of class management challenge din, because while sa teacher, mahirap mag-check ng papel, mahirap mag-isa-isa na makilala mo sila by name. Ako nga, maski yung sa graduate classes ko, maski 15 lang, 20, parang hirap na kaagad i-memorize yung mga pangalan. How much more if you have let's say 100, 160, 200, ganyan. So yan, the challenges can really be summarized into 4 items, and let me just show you some statistics ng UP Diliman over the, well, I did this 2019, di ba siya, may update naman doon sa ibang aspeto, but this was really from 2014 to 2019. So ito nga yung ating enrollment. Kung mapapansin nyo, actually marami ang engineering, but well, isa, nag-increase talaga ang enrollment. And then siguro dito na muna tayo sa increase nyo. Kung 5,000 yan every year, at kung gagawin mo siyang 100 yung class size, that's 50 sections, right? So challenge nga siya. Kung 100, kung gawin mo siyang 30, 40 lang, which is really the situation now in the COVID. So parang, magdodoble din yung number of classrooms mo dapat para mahabol yung 5,000, 4,000. No, so that's a real challenge. And then ito lang yung parang statistics din on the units ng UP Diliman. Yung kanilang percentage, actually maraming from College of Engineering, also because the College of Engineering is the largest, I think, in terms of studentry. So ganun naman talaga. And then yung class size, so indeed merong 160, 170 average na to, and merong mga 200 nga. So kung maganda naman yung pagkadala ng class, wala namang pwede naman siyang walang problema, but of course the challenge nga to manage the class, to check to yung mga exams. And then yun nga, the last 2 years bumaba talaga yung ating class size. Medyo ayaw na rin ng mga teachers magdala ng sobrang madami. And so ayan, so merong 93, average 93, but 100, may 60, may 120, ganyan, may 50 lang din. For this school year, inano sana natin yung mga class size na mga around 80, pero we are under pandemic, so ayaw magdala. Also of connectivity and data challenges, ayaw karamihan ng ating mga teachers na magkaroon ng class size more than 40, so 50, ganyan. So really a challenge. And then sections offered. Siguro nga itong mga nandito dahil malalaki ang mga class sizes, so mga 18, 24, so kahit mga ganito lang yung ina-offer, nakikater naman yung 5,000. Pero kung yellow ito dahil target pa lang namin yan, so we targeted 66 sections, mukhang hindi kami aabot for this school year. So para mapunuan yung mga around 4,000 demand for STS 1 in UP Diliman. So ayan, challenge. So ang sections offered nga, so STS class section offered, yung enrollment din ng 2014 to 2020 per semester. So parang nag-average kami ng nasa mga 1,2, 1,3 sa first sem, 1,2, ganun din sa second sem, and then around 500 up to 1,000 in the midterm. Pero ngayon ay yun, challenge pagdating ng 2020 kasi ayan, kung mapapansin natin to, yung nandito sa may summer ng 2020, COVID ito 16 students lang yung isang buo. Madami silang nagtulong-tulong para dyan. Ayun, and then again, we're targeting sort of optimistic na makuha natin to for this school year. So, hopefully, para makuha pa rin. So, challenge. Ayan, so, yun, pwede nating i-summarize nga into 4 points yung challenges. Although, punta tayo sa opportunities, yung opportunity na nakikita natin ngayon ay yung actually after our dalawang orientation workshops, one in January this year and the other in January last year. We are actually gaining more interest from teachers to teach. In fact, lagi kaming nagsasabi, ay maraming engineering, bakit walang engineering na nagtuturo? Ayan, meron na ngayon. I think at least 3 of our teachers now are from the College of Engineering. And then, yan, ito ding online remote learning system. Practically, kahit sino ang invite natin as a source person, pwede na. So, I think this is opportunity kasi kahit nandoon siya sa Davao, kahit nandoon siya sa Iloilo, kahit nandoon sa States, pwede nating invite para maging resource person sa ating klase. So, that's an opportunity and wala ring classroom limitation. And then, itong dinidevelop namin ngayon and actually being piloted really, sana mapadami at mapastrengthen namin yung aming dinidevice na faculty in charge mode. Ang idea is really the content providers can actually be so mayroong isang faculty in charge, tapos he or she should be getting the content from the contributors, no? So pwedeng naka-video pero pwede ring live ganyan, para ma-solve yung hesitation or discomfort ng mga teachers, halimbawa na ay ano yan, masyado nang labas sa aking comfort zone. So okay yon. And really, because itong STS nga is a multidisciplinary, mahirap din namang imagine na o baligtarin natin, maganda siya na ma-enrich by available expertise in the university, Diliman, or even the system-wide, or even sa labas pa talaga. By inviting resource persons. Kaya lang, kailangan mo, kung ikaw si faculty in charge, you make sure na swak lahat yun sa syllabus. Ayan, siguro yun lang muna. Let's wait for the others to share some of their experiences and bidahan in their own campus, and mamaya pag mag-usap tayo tungkol sa nabasa ko na rin yung mga questions. So siguro during the discussion portion na lang natin yun itatakal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir
Good
Rene.
afternoon, everyone.
So he shared. I'm sorry, Steph. I'll just make a one-sentence synthesis. So Sir Rene shared about the challenge of conducting big classes without the corresponding just as big classroom, but he also found opportunities in what he calls as limitless or wall-less classroom because of this technology. So now we move on to Sir Victor Romero. Take it away, please.
Victor M. Romero II, a faculty member of the Division of Natural Sciences and Mathematics at the University of the Philippines, Visayas Tacloban College. I mainly teach computer science courses and have only recently been involved in GE through STS, or Science, Technology, and Society. The title of my presentation for this afternoon is STS1, Reflections on Relevance, Opportunities, and Challenges, which draws from my experience in teaching STS as someone from the computer science discipline and in the context of the current crisis. I was first acquainted with STS as an instructor through talks solicited from me by my colleagues in the division who handled the course. These requests were open-ended, allowing me to choose between many issues that involved computer science, technology, and society. Some of the topics I had chosen included information pollution on the internet or the World Wide Web, data privacy, and the dangers of unsolicited data analysis and digital divide. I felt that these topics were most timely and relevant on account of the larger role played by digital data and the internet in modern living. Through these talks, I will find or confirm that there is a lack of understanding of the mechanisms underlying everyday technology. That is, students rarely understood how they operated beyond their known input and output relationships. Considering the increasing complexity of modern technology and the use of simplified abstractions, I had expected this to be the case. However, what I found more troubling was that for the students, the consequences of, in this case, digital technological use were quite unclear. And more importantly, for many of the students, the talks served as the initial inquiry for such consequences. Given the foreseen increase in the role played by technology in the future, active discussions on their consequences should be maintained. These insights for me were compelling reasons to be interested in science, technology, and society. To date, I have taught the new STS course for 4 semesters, some of which in a co-teaching arrangement with colleagues in the division, and some consisting of students from different disciplines. What follows are reflections on the relevance of science, technology, and society as a GE course. Okay, so the first one is that STS can be used as a tool for understanding the world. Science, technology, and society, in part, establishes science beyond its usual definition as an organized body of knowledge to an approach to understanding the physical world that is based on empirical evidence. In the process, students are exposed to different ways of knowing that can help them understand the validity and limitations of scientific knowledge and evaluate the extent by which the world they live in is scientific. I have always found it interesting how students, on account of the advancements in science and technology on the global scene, will initially strongly claim that the modern world they live in is scientific and later reconsider as they reflect on the degree of scientific involvement in their day-to-day decision-making. This outcome of STS is particularly relevant due to the implementation of the new K-12 curricula, where students may not have the necessary skills for understanding scientific information and using it to drive decision-making processes as a consequence of their tracks in high school. Secondly, STS can be used to combat over-specialization. To meet the demands of modern workplaces, degree programs have continued to focus on keeping up to date with recent trends through the institution of additional specialization courses. Without proper interventions, this over-specialization can result in graduates that are unable to see the larger picture of the scientific problems they are trying to solve. STS recognizes the increasing complexity of modern scientific problems and the need to draw from multiple disciplines to arrive at comprehensive or holistic solutions. It must be noted, however, that the success of STS in achieving this goal is greatly influenced by the representation of various disciplines in a class. Finally, STS can supplement specialization courses. Mansour writes that the primary objective of an STS education is to present a contextual understanding of current science and technology and provide students with the intellectual foundations for responsible citizenship. STS as a paradigm in science education can supplement the delivery of science specialization courses by causing the students to more consciously ask questions such as how one specialization can be used outside the situation in which it was acquired, how it can prepare oneself to bear responsibilities with science-related societal issues, and how it can contribute to becoming a better member of a democratic society. Following the relevance of STS, may I now point out some opportunities and challenges in its delivery. First, STS can greatly benefit from the collaborative and interdisciplinary delivery by multiple experts. Having multiple experts discuss a common issue from the vantage of their disciplines provides a more holistic understanding and may reveal competing views or goals that may require some sort of balancing. Similarly, cohort heterogeneity fosters interactive and multi-contextual discussions following the same argument that is raised in the first statement. It must also be noted that the Philippines has its many science, technology, and societal issues that students can choose from to further explore and develop their own positions. One such issue is the current pandemic crisis, which can be considered as a living case study, especially in the context of post-normal science. In the case of challenges, we note the unavailability of STS instructors from different fields of expertise and the invisibility of previously collaborative activities, as well as the preference of students for individual assignments in the current learning setup. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Victor. Thank you for reminding us that STS is a course that can combat specialization in many ways by, among others, by collaborative efforts of the experts, of the different teachers in the different disciplines. Let's now move on to our third panel member, Sir Alvaro Calara.
Good afternoon. I am Professor Alvaro Calara from UP Los Baños, and this is my 8th semester in teaching STS since 2017. I will be sharing about my own reflection on how STS, UPLB STS 1 cluster prepared the course back last semester. When we had our pre-conference meeting last April 19, I was the first one to volunteer during the tasking part. I really want to share what we are doing as a cluster in UPLB. And second, I also want to take this opportunity to thank my cluster mates for all their support and contribution in preparing the STS course back last semester. So some innovations that we have been doing in UPLB, it has been our practice to meet before the semester, to conduct the evaluation and planning workshop. We evaluate the previous semester and plan for the coming semester. It is a good venue to bond and share our best practices with one another. So when the pandemic hit us last year, so we just migrated to Zoom meeting to accomplish this semestral practice. That's the food, of course. But anyway, so going back to the course pack preparation, the cluster reviewed the learning outcomes per topic, and realign that to the course outcomes. In preparing for our course pack, we assigned a lead person per module to facilitate the review of the 4 modules that we adopted from the UP system. Faculty members teaching STS for the first time or for a year, for more than a year, were distributed among the 4 modules being rolled out in UPLB. While recognizing the integrity of the modules given by the system, each of the group was given the liberty to rearrange the sequence of the topics and combine some topics and their corresponding learning outcomes in consideration of the new 14-week schedule that was implemented. In doing so, consistency of the content coverage was ensured. And to make the module and topics more active and learner-centered, a detailed study guide was prepared in every topic so that the students were properly directed on what resource materials were needed for the discussion and what key concepts need to be learned and how these learnings can be applied. So the flow of the learning process followed the LB advanced progression as conceptualized by our very own UPLB GE Director, Dr. Mark Oliver Lianco. L sa LB Advanced. L stands for launch. The topic to be discussed was launched through a series of questions and or activities to elicit prior knowledge of students regarding the topic. It also prepared them on what to look forward to in the learning process. So that's for L. For the B stands for build. After eliciting prior knowledge, anticipation was built up by providing guide questions pertaining to the required readings and or videos the students need to read and or watch. Now, guide questions were carefully formulated to underscore basic concepts that need to be learned by the student. This was done asynchronously for a more active interaction of students with the content while instilling in them the self-guiding learning. Right? Supplemental materials like videos, online databases, websites, other articles, and journals were also listed down for students to navigate through at their own pace. Assignments or pre-activities as part of the formative assessment were crafted to highlight concepts and ideas that need to be emphasized. And the advanced part, so LB advanced, the advanced part, consists of a major output that students need to submit to apply all the lessons that they learned from the topic. Cluster deliberated on the summative assessments and the corresponding rubrics that needed to assess the students' learning and output. So we set up a shared Google Drive as well as repository of all our resources, from PowerPoint presentations, journal articles, videos, podcasts, recorded presentations for easy access of the cluster. And a teaching demonstration was also conducted per topic, per module, to orient the faculty who will be teaching STS, particularly the first timers. Best practices were also shared during this demo teaching. Everything is shared within the cluster to support and help each other. Everyone was also oriented in the use of the learning management system. We agreed to use Google Classroom. So what we did is to set up a master Google Classroom, and this was just copied by the cluster member for their respective classes. But we also allowed them to use like Edmodo, if they're already familiar with it. The cluster also decided to incorporate a key takeaway matrix at the end of every module so we can easily assess how each module was implemented. So this matrix consists of 3 questions. So the first question is, what is your key takeaway from the topic? The second question is, what did you like best about the topic in terms of aspect, delivery, or procedure? And the third question asked from the student is, what do you think could be improved? So it helped us a lot. It's a very useful matrix for us to be able to assess the modules easily. So we do believe that increasing the interaction among students is a great pedagogy to increase the learning efficiency. Being a good team player starts from collaboration through group activities. However, we also realized that group activities were not ideal at this point in time, because students experience some constraints in terms of collaborating and coordinating with each other. Now, we recognize that the faculty in charge remains the only source of assistance, providing human contact, encouragement, and affirmation to their respective students. They were reminded to foster a safe learning community so that students will be constantly assured, motivated, and encouraged to learn. Before the start of the semester, the GE philosophy presentation given by the system was also rolled out to the faculty, just to remind them of the relevance of the GE program. Faithful to the outcomes-based education pedagogy, we transform from being the sage on the stage to being the guide on the side during this time of remote learning and teaching. So meetings were set even during weekends and holidays. Some faculty even experienced poor internet connectivity during Zoom meetings. Working from home arrangements still needed to be structured, but at the end of the day, it was all worth it. The course pack preparation went on smoothly since the cluster was cooperative enough to facilitate such undertaking. Although we could have wished for more trainings and more financial assistance, but nevertheless, everyone gave their best to deliver more than what was needed and expected. And for that, I remain humbled and grateful as I affirm the UPLB cluster for all their contributions and sacrifices. Good afternoon to all of you.
Thank you, Sir Al, for sharing how UPLB did it or is doing it, the collaborative efforts that everybody in the cluster has been observing, including reviewing the modules up to designing rubrics and takeaways for students. Thank you. Let's now move to Sir Miguel.
Okay, good day. I am Mr. Miguel Antonio P. Catalig from the UP Manila, and I will share some of our practices in assessment in the conduct of our STS classes. So here is the breakdown of our grade in STS in UP Manila. 25% is from their individual critical essay. 25% is from their individual final pitch. 25% is from their final group project, which is uh, done by via groups, and it has also an accompanying self and peer evaluation. And then 25% will come from individual and class activities as assigned by the different instructors in UP Manila for STS. So based on the essays of Moshman, Persig, Sagan, and Fleck, so these are assigned readings in STS in UP Manila. So here are some examples of position paper thesis statements. So yeah, so for example, should high school students have their parents sign a waiver that they will not interfere in the online classes of their students? So mapansin nyo sa iba pang sa two other critical essay na medyo may kinalaman yung internet tsaka yung bagong online setup din sa mga position paper na pinapagawa sa mga STS student. So here is a preview of the rubric for the critical essay. So very detailed na rubric. So yung for example, section 1.1 and 1.2, yung criteria na yan, this is related to the reading of David Moshman on epistemic cognition of Pluto. Yun namang reading yun namang criteria 2.1 and criteria 2.2. These are related to the readings from Ludwig Fleck, yung to look, to see, and to know. And then yung 3.1 and 3.2 related sa assigned reading ni Carl Sagan and Robert Pirsig. So these aspects or criteria dun sa critical essay, kinuha yan from the readings. And meron siyang rating and yung meron kang checklist kung ano yung dapat ma-accomplish ng student dun sa kanyang essay. So this is the final pitch, an example of a final pitch. So basically the idea is the student should have the skill to propose a short project na pwedeng malaki yung scale or super liit ng scale. Ang idea is yung kanyang objective na masaset ay aligned sa methods na ipopropose niyang gawin. So basically, yung methods aligned ba sa objectives na masaset niya. So yung alignment na yon ng objectives sa methods, yun yung chine-check namin sa mga students namin sa STS. So this is a preview of the rubric for criteria 1 and 2 sa final pitch. Sa case study naman, these are some example of case study. So ang titingnan naman ay a social media group or for example, related dun sa kanilang critical essay. So dun sa case na to sa mga physics major students ko last semester, yung ginawa is on online learning. So yung kanilang social media group na chinek ay Reddit subgroup r/askphysics. And another group of physics students, ang chinek naman is case analysis ng FB groups na gumagawa ng assignment or tumutulong ng assignment sa other students. So sa Facebook group na to, yung iba may bayad. Okay, so na-mention ko na may rubric doon sa final pitch. Medyo similar din yung rubric sa final group project with the addition of a detailed rubric on the results and discussion. So aside from those rubrics, meron ding self and peer evaluation na binibigay yung mga members ng groups amongst themselves, and that is part of their grade. So meron ding comments that gives us instructor an insight on the group dynamics of our students in STS. So dun sa pag-move natin sa setup na online, nabawasan din significantly yung mga objective requirements, yung mga individual quizzes, yung mga multiple choice type na requirements na exam, nabawasan na. So medyo mas outcomes-based na yung mga outputs, which is based on the recommendation of the UPGE program. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share some of the assessments in UP Manila for our STS classes.
Thank you, Sir Miguel. Would UP Manila be kind if some teachers are interested in adopting your rubrics and assessment? Maybe you can answer that later. May I remind our participants that they can use the chat room for their questions. Just send them directly, and there are technical people who will help sort out those questions. Now, for our final panel list, let's call on Dr. Zarko.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Mark Zarko, and this is my sharing regarding teaching DR maps. To introduce myself, I'm a professor in the Institute of Civil Engineering in UP Diliman. I was a member of the pool of experts for STS for 10 years. However, during the last 8 years, I've taught disaster risk mitigation, adaptation, and preparedness strategies, or DR maps. DR maps is an alternative to STS in the GE program of UP Diliman. Since disaster risk reduction and management is interdisciplinary in nature, the teaching team, the course is handled by a teaching team consisting of myself as the coordinator, as well as 5 other faculty members from different colleges within the UP Diliman, The course is taught in a cooperative and collaborative manner because DRRM is also cooperative and collaborative. Here, we're shown having lunch after a class where we're discussing and reflecting on how the class went that day, and also discussing how we can improve the delivery of the course as well as our teaching strategies in succeeding class sessions. Our student learning activities for DR maps are also interdisciplinary as well as collaborative and cooperative. Students are organized into interdisciplinary teams in which they perform a case study involving the risk assessment within a given community. And this is the culminating activity for the course. There are also other group activities that students have to complete to be able to understand and also reinforce DRRM concepts as well as build team skills. DR maps uses a peer learning model, but with the modification that this is done within an interdisciplinary setting. In this particular model for DR maps, an expert teacher teaches other teachers in the teaching team who are novices in this particular, relative novices in this particular discipline, and these teachers actually integrate their expertise in their own idea and then teach students in the class. Within each of the teams, the good students, who we call the expert students, teach the other students. These expert students can also be students that have advanced background in a particular discipline, like, for example, students that are good in that are in film can help other students develop audiovisual materials for presenting the case study. In this particular form, we realize that teaching a GE course becomes continuing general education for even the teachers or for the GE faculty. In this course, we adopt a blended learning model based on a flipped classroom for delivering instructional materials. This allows the course delivery to be student-centered so that the student has more control over the learning process, and there's less emphasis and it's less centered on the teacher. Another advantage of this approach is that the course delivery is more disaster resilient. This allows the course to continue even when there's a class suspension due to a, let's say, volcanic eruption or an earthquake or a flood or a typhoon, or even due to the pandemic. My three questions that I'd like to pose are, this conference emphasizes the intersectionality as well as interdisciplinarity of GE. But should not GE also be inclusive in that it should include as many academic units in a given CU to be able to demonstrate the diversity of knowledge, as well as it should also be integrative. That is, the diversity of knowledge should be presented in a manner that is unified as well as coherent. As a corollary to this, should we also emphasize depth by having topical GEs, like for example in the case of DR maps, this could very well be viewed as a topical version of STS where we focus on disaster risk reduction and management rather than taking the breadth of subjects within science, technology, and society, and yet not be able to discuss them in very great depth. Finally, we all know that soft skills are very important to forming relationships as well as maintaining relationships, both in life as well as in work. Should we not include teaching and emphasizing these soft skills as one of the GE objectives? I'd like to conclude my sharing this afternoon by saying that teaching VR maps for the past 8 years has been one of the most fulfilling aspects of my career as a UP Diliman professor. I've grown a lot intellectually because of the various ideas that I have been able to glean from my colleagues in the teaching team. I'd like to, and I'm very passionate about sharing this experience because I believe it brings hope as well as encouragement to all faculty who wish to teach interdisciplinary GE courses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Mark. And shall we give a virtual clap to all our panel members for what they have shared? Time check, it's 2:19. So what we will do is for the rest of the period, we will now be more spontaneous and maybe candid with what we want to share or react from what we have heard. Helping me with the trafficking, the questions that you are sending is Professor Nelfa Glova, the GE coordinator here in UP Mindanao. So it's question and answer time and sharing from the rest in the room. Okay. Anybody who would like to throw a spontaneous question, please raise your hand and the technical people will help in identifying you. And if there is no hand or hands, then we can proceed with the questions that have been registered, no, during the time when you were asked to register electronically. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to raise a question spontaneously? Do we have anybody, Steph? None so far. Ma'am Nelfa, can we ask the first question, please?
Yes, Ma'am Ruth. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. So, Ma'am Ruth has a suggested question, but I think that would be very good later on, Ma'am. So, we will look at the list of questions that we have here. We will start with question has something to do with teaching strategies, particularly flexible learning solutions for STS1. And this question is about the strategy to ease our students from too many readings, and related to that is the how many asynchronous sessions do you have per section in one semester for STS. So those are the two concerns, easing students from too many readings and recommended number of synchronous sessions.
All right.
Alright, Ma'am Ruth, hello po. Ako na po muna ang sasagot.
Yes, go ahead, Sir Al.
Opo. Sa amin po, we try to limit talaga yung reading. So we prioritize the reading per topic. So 1 or 2 readings per topic ang ginawa namin. And then the rest are supplemental readings para mas malit. Mas konti na lang talaga yung babasahin ng mga students. And then we really scheduled, no, yung aming cluster really agreed on a certain schedule para at least man lang once a week meron kaming synchronous meetings. Yun po sa UPLB.
Hello.
Okay. Sir
Yes,
Victor.
Professor Romero, ma'am. Regarding dun sa reading, ma'am, actually, one strategy that I've found to be very helpful is to have alternate sources of information, particularly videos, no, na pre-synthesized yung readings. So, for example, I found this channel. There's a part in STS that really talks about philosophy and epistemology and how do we even qualify if something is scientific knowledge and to what extent should we believe this these statements. So I found this. It's an old podcast of philosophers just talking with each other and trying to understand what pragmatism is or what empiricism is and something like that. So I've always found na if you try to supplement your because the readings are particularly hard. I mean, we have to be very clear about that. Kasi ako nga, I'm coming from computer science. When I first looked at the readings, I was like, I didn't know that STS was like this, no? So eventually you start questioning yourself and do I even know what I know? So those kinds of questions, which for me are also quite interesting, especially when the students start asking those questions. So that's one strategy that I've always found to be very helpful. So there's the reading, because I appreciate the effort of trying to digest an actual scientific material that has been published in journals, and at the same time, there's really a need for students to get an alternative source of information which has been pre-digested. So doon naman sa flexible learning, we have been very strict to some extent. We have been very strict in UP Tacloban. We would really like to limit the number of synchronous sessions. So interaction is really done asynchronously using the virtual learning platform. Kasi yung kalagayan kasi sa Tacloban, being the UP in Eastern Visayas. We have students who are really, from far-flung places who do not have access to internet and such. So they don't have these infrastructures. So, ultimately, it's really, digesting material. So yun, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. What about from the participants? Anybody who would like to share or to answer the question? How have you been managing the must reads and the what's the other one, Ma'am Nelfa? Must reads and
the number of synchronous sessions, ma'am.
Synchronous sessions, yes. Anybody from the participants?
I-volunteer ko si Michelle from UP Diliman.
Okay, go, Ma'am Michelle.
Good afternoon. What's the question again? Because I was also typing.
Okay. The question is, how do you manage the voluminous reading materials, no, that are found in the modules and the synchronous sessions that you might be asking your students?
Okay, I think, I just typed in the chat box that in my case, usually the required readings are those associated with their assignment. So yeah, like I have the assignment, okay, please read this, please watch this, and then answer this. Also for, I think, well, based on the students, they prefer once a week a synchronous session only. No, synchronous session only. Then, for example, Wednesday, Friday class. So one session is synchronous, then the other one is asynchronous. But sometimes it cannot be avoided that we have to do synchronous meetings in what days.
Okay. Maybe we can move to the next question, Ma'am Nels.
Hello, yes, ma'am. I think that there's a question here that relates to the earlier discussion, and it centers on the content specifically, and it also relates to the purpose of having this conversation. Why are the topics in STS mostly philosophical?
Why?
Okay, so
Anybody from the panel?
I'd like to answer that question as a matter of experience. Kasi when I was back when I was a student, which was a little bit a long time ago, there was really an emphasis on the breadth topics in STS. Like you have to learn about why the atomic bomb is dangerous, why nuclear power is something like this, and so on and so forth. So lots and lots of issues on science, technology, and society. But when I was looking at the progression, the actual development of science, technology, and society as a field of inquiry, as a formal field of inquiry, not only in the Philippines, but in the greater, in the world, it turns out kasi na yung STS is really motivated by, to some extent, trying to criticize the dominance of science as a way of knowing and trying to establish a hold in the world. And part of trying to question yung authority ng STS is trying to understand what it means to have scientific knowledge. And for you to be able to understand that, you need to be able to answer the question of what is knowledge even to begin with. Diba? And what are the ways by which we develop knowledge? Diba? Why do we agree that when an expert tells us that something is the case, why do we take his opinion for it? When in fact, based on tenets of science and technology, that should not be the case, because we should not take somebody's word for it. So these are interesting questions na I have just discovered when I was already looking at the actual reading materials dito sa STS. And as when you look at STS as an actual field of study, kasi sa labas talaga, it's an actual program. You can get a master's degree in science technology studies. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, why? Because of the why in science. Is that it, Mr. Sir Victor? I saw the hand of Sir Benji Valier. Are you raising your hand to answer the question, Sir Benj?
Yeah, about the philosophy aspect, the reason why we have to spend a little bit more time on the philosophy, especially in epistemology and epistemics, is because what is really the nature of scientific knowledge? If it's is it really a given or a culturally constructed one? Okay, so the students are given at least a way by which to look at these questions, which are still important questions until now, especially when we go to the modules on science policy and development. Who determines developmental priorities in science? Who determines which funding should go where in this? This involves a background, or at least some appreciation of philosophical concepts in order to evaluate any scientific claim any prioritization in science and technology. So I think that is a very important thing in STS. Anyway, in other STS programs, that is essentially one of the main subjects taken, but we cannot fit it in one semester. So I think we have to try to make well of the time given us in the modules.
Okay, wait, Sir Jack, you are raising your hand. And did Ma'am Leia also raise her hand, Ma'am Nelfa?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am Leia has a question. I forwarded it to you.
Okay, so Ma'am Leia, we will go back to your question. We will hear Sir Jack first on the question, why is STS more philosophical?
Okay, yeah, thank you, ma'am. Because it is also one way of having this course as multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. So every time when we, for example, discuss Module 1, which is on the history of science and philosophy of science, I would tell them to recall your Soksay 1 or Soksay 2, if they ever took it, or your Asian history, and then review what you remember about those thoughts or ways of seeing the world when it comes to science. Okay, so may mga iba halimbawa na they would recall, pero yung mga iba parang nakalimutan na kasi nila yung mga ibang courses, yung lalong-lalo na yung mga social science courses, no? Pati I would also ask the philo majors, have you come across this? Halimbawa nung nag-aral kayo ng Hellenistic, Greek philosophy, even siguro kung may Indian philosophy, no? Pwede nyo bang i-relate itong ano natin, halimbawa yung those philosophical thoughts on cause and effect and something, those things, no? Kaya it's a way of putting STS1 into its multidisciplinary context.
Yes, the multidisciplinarity in STS. Ma'am Nelf, have you found the question of Ma'am Leia, or can we ask her directly? Ma'am Leia?
I was just asking po as to when is Prof. Jack is going to speak as a panelist. That's why I was asking the question whether he's going to speak after the Q&A.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not quite get it, Ma'am Nelf.
Yes, ma'am. I forwarded the question to you. Professor Jack is supposed also to present as a panelist. So Ma'am Leia wanted to ask when would that his turn be?
Okay, I will answer that in the chat box. Can we read the comments first? Dito sa chat box, Ma'am Nelf, from Ma'am Michelle.
Yeah. Okay. There's a I think that this is not a question Ma'am Michelle posted out. I think that it's more a comment na students of STS have taken lots of GE course before they take the STS, so that kinds of prepare them for the course.
And then we have Sir Kevin Meneses, no? Para po sa mga panelists, hindi po kaya dapat transdisciplinarity ang nilalayo natin sa paraan ng pagtuturo sa halip na nasa pagiging multidisciplinarity lamang? Anybody from the panel? Yes, Sir Mark?
Okay, okay. I'd like to comment on that. That's the reason why we have that particular strategy in DR Maps, because all of the experts, as they handle the course in parallel, there's cross-pollination of ideas. So that even when we teach our major courses, like now, when I teach civil engineering courses, it has issues of perception and also tropes from literature. So it actually permeates even our other major courses. So that way there's cross-pollination between all of the experts that handle a single GE together. That's the reason why I say that this GE, teaching it is like you're giving yourself continuing general education in GE. So your GE does not end after you get out of college. It goes on as you teach this course.
Okay, yes. Anybody else from the panel? Should it be trans or multidisciplinarity?
Ma'am, both naman, Ma'am Ruth. Kasi yung pagiging transdisciplinary nyo na is already in the content of the modules. So, and then yung multidisciplinary is in terms of who's handling STS. So, pareho naman po niya na-address.
So, are there more questions, Ma'am Nels?
Yes, ma'am. There's a question here, and it's still related to teaching strategies. Many students now prefer projects to be done individually rather than by group. So this is a question of quality assurance. How do you ensure that collaborative group projects are done effectively?
Pwede po ako sumagot. Hello. Siguro yung self and peer evaluation is a way to parang i-make sure na amongst themselves may sense of control amongst the students. Parang hindi naman control, parang may sense of responsibility yung mga students among their peers. So instead na yung teacher lang yung nagre-regulate ng groups, they themselves, yung mga magkaka-group, dahil may evaluation yung mga members dun sa other members nila sa group for a specific project, medyo may control, may parang nakokontrol sila somehow ng mga groupmates nila. Hindi lang yung teacher. And aside from that, medyo nababawasan din yung pressure from the teacher kasi let's say yung pagsubaybay sa kanila, hindi lang yung teacher yung nagsusubaybay, meron din groupmates na nagsusubaybay. So yung mga chat groups na sa Hangouts or siguro kung FB Messenger na chat group with the teacher, swerte yung UP Manila kasi maliit kasi yung mga 40 yung yung students namin sa STS, pero nakita ko yung UP Diliman 160. So sa amin medyo feasible and doable yung may mga chat groups yung mga teacher na maliliit sa mga students nila. So may chat group na para from time to time mag-report yung mga students doon sa chat group. Tapos meron ding self and peer evaluation. So medyo napipilitan yung mga students na mas mag-exert ng effort kung dalawa yung nagre-regulate. So may teacher, tas meron yung peers nila.
Mm-hmm. So there's a check and balance among them. Si Sir Brian Alamani, you raised your hand po.
Magandang hapon po. Bali yung sa klase po namin, ang ginawa ko po kasi bago kami nagsimula ng semester, nagkakilalan muna yung mga estudyante. So they wanted to know one another. So nag-spend po kami ng session doon. Tapos po, doon nila nakilala yung bawat isa. So pagkatapos po nun, siguro mga 1 or 2 meeting, nag-create sila ng kanilang mga Discord account, a number of them. So kasi ito is a gaming. Kasi na-mention ko about Mobile Legends, na-mention ko about online games. I know these students like that. Kasi ako po, naglalaro ako ng Mobile Legends. So what happened is that they actually also invited me, but I did not join kasi hindi ko naman kayang gawin yung ginagawa nila that they can concentrate. And through that platform, they actually started to do a lot of collaborative activity. Tapos po, when we reread the paper in class, we do a lot of breakout sessions online. At mabilis po sila mag-generate ng synthesis. So yun po yung so far nangyayari sa klase namin. So collaborative po na aspect. Yun lang po.
Okay, we cannot entertain everybody, but if you are following the chat group natin, ang daming mga comments, so you might also want to take a look at them. But Sir Benny Pacheco, you also raised your hand po.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. To make it short, I just would like to connect to one point that was mentioned so far, yung group work. In the course design, of DR maps and perhaps STS1 as well, one of the declared learning outcomes is related to group work. So kahit mahirap sa pandemic, we embraced this requirement and found ways to still make it effective. The long and short of it is, as also in the chat box, we have enhanced procedures like minimizing the size of the group to at most 3 rather than 5, facilitating more group dynamics, whether in class before or online. I mean, we had to find tools how to facilitate their group dynamics. And of course, it takes a lot of effort, but the point I'm making is we're not turning back. We believe that group work in terms of student groups coming from different disciplines is a necessary part of the course. Hence, sabi namin sa mga estudyante, magsumikap tayo dito. Both faculty and students find that difficult, but that's part of our DR maps. By the way, half of the students of DR maps would be taking the course because required by their curriculum. The other half would have chosen it as elective. So also we have a very heterogeneous class, which is good. And we try to mix them really to have the maximum effect in terms of playing out or letting the group dynamics play out. Ang aming mantra is DRRM is never an individual endeavor. Therefore, we have to figure out how to do this, starting from a very mixed group. And from experience, yes, painful, but fruitful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I remember your soft skill sa DR map. So, learning how to work as a team, is that a soft skill, Sir Benny?
Yes, ma'am. If you're coming from psychology, that's all you do, and it is a skill. So anyway, soft, hard, we try to emphasize well-rounded. The thing we want to emphasize is we graduated from being engineering-centric in this course to really inter or even transdisciplinary. And I echo Dr. Zarco for saying it's much more than putting 6 teachers on the same schedule. It is having these 6 teachers discourse among themselves, and in the process, modify even our own perceptions. So if we ask our students to challenge or question assumptions about science and technology, likewise, we should be willing to question our own disciplines. That is the pride of DR Maps. And we challenge all the STS teachers. There's a question by Dr. Mendoza, by the way, unanswered. How do we teachers really do team teaching in a course? I think it's worth discussing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Should we take that up now? How has your team teaching been? Was it simply, calling people, then assigning them module 1, module 2, give your grades, see you when we have to submit the grades? Ganon ba yun? Anybody from the participants? Or
hi, ma'am.
Romero?
Maybe
Yes,
I can add. Sorry. Sige po. So last semester, there are 3 of us in the same course ng STS. So Dr. Mendoza, myself, and then Dr. Miguel Remolona. So the 3 of us. So meron kaming mga session na nagkukwentuhan kami. Ginawa namin kwentuhan session. So sabay-sabay kaming 3 na nandoon. Tapos may mga pagkakataon na one is really proficient sa amin sa technical. So tinutulungan niya kami kasi kailangan ng breakout session, kailangan mag-monitor. So hinahati namin yung trabaho in a live session. So normally, isa po yung sa ginagawa naming arrangement because last time was more challenging because number of students really didn't have much access sa connection. Ngayong SEM po, medyo mas okay na. Pero yun po yung ginagawa namin in terms of the team teaching part aspect sa delivery po sa klase.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am Nels, maybe we can move to the next question.
Yes, ma'am. There's a question here about turning science into something interactive for students. So how do we effectively make students from different programs get interested in a GE subject that's particularly STS?
Okay, from the panel, anybody?
Hi, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to answer this no, particularly in the context of the current crisis and in relation to the yung virtual learning environment. So what I've always found to be useful no is I come up doon sa forum kasi sa virtual learning environment. What I do is I put on seed questions. You know, like I try to ask them question like, how do you think? Why are you even trying to finish a degree in psychology, for example? So how does that contribute to your being a better scientifically motivated person or something like that? So and some of them, some of these questions are taken from the readings. You know, like you try to ask the students questions like, do you think that we can come up? Do you think that we will reach a state where we understand everything about the universe? You know, taking from Sagan's paper on, you know, can we know the universe? And interestingly, you know, yung mga students, they will start answering these questions from their specific disciplines. No, and then I also ask the students to comment on somebody's answer because sometimes there could be, you know, competing views on a particular topic. So this, to some extent, tries to answer the question of collaborating in the context of the new normal. Kasi recognizing that it may not be possible all the time, no, to have really strict group works. What I've found to be useful is to use the virtual learning environment as a platform for collaboration so that the collaboration is a little bit loose. Hindi siya yung tipong okay, group 1, group 2, group 3, no? And then group 1 you submit this or something like that. But more of like, okay, give me what you think about this topic, and then, you know, somebody can critique about what you think, or come up with a proposition regarding this particular STS issue, and somebody can also talk about that from a different standpoint. So yeah, I think that what I'm trying to say here now is to try to answer that question, we can also try asking the question of, have we maximized the virtual learning environment as a platform for delivering our STS course? So that's all.
Okay. Hello po. Para maging, sagot po lang ako. Para maging pong interesting yung certain topics ng STS, I think may mga medyo popular topics or medyo controversial topics na deliberately ini-inject sa course. So for example, let's say some type of debate. For example, yung mga glutathione injectables ba dapat bawal yung mga non-medical establishment magturok ng glutathione injectable. So medyo practical siya. And at the same time, merong idea ng autonomy siguro na bahala akong magturok kung ano gusto kong iturok, or yung meron na dapat i-monitor yung mga bagay-bagay and i-regulate. So meron mga ganong opinion. So medyo controversial siya. Or sige, another example, yung let's say yung sa agriculture, medyo controversial yung i-tax ba yung meat kasi para mabawasan yung pollution, kasi yung mga cattle, yung mga poultry may contribution sa pollution. So medyo controversial siya, tsaka medyo kakaiba yung question, tapos pipilitin mo na magkaroon ng dalawang sides. Typical sa debate, magkaroon ng opposite sides. So medyo nagiging masaya yung discussion. So I think isang suggestion, sasabihin ko na lang is, yung suggestion ko is gawing medyo controversial or sometimes medyo absurd or medyo minsan practical issue yung i-discuss sa class.
Okay. Or maybe more relevant, no, to the issues of the times. Okay, time check, it's 2:49. I know si Ma'am Pat Arinto will have something to say before we leave. So maybe we can now ask Sir Jack for the synthesis. Nakamute po kayo, Sir Jack. Nakamute.
Hello?
Okay, go.
Yes.
Go
Can
po.
I share my notes? Ano ko na lang para makita.
Yes po.
Okay, so if I may start from, sisimulan ko na lang dito, ano? Yung kay Prof. Rene yung pinakauna. So the challenges, bilisan ko na lang, no? The challenges in teaching STS1, the demand for enrollment is getting high. And then this also presents us challenges with regards to teachers, that there is hesitancy among teachers, that it is, some of them remark that it is beyond their comfort zone, and the big classroom size, no? Lalong-lalo na dun sa halimbawa pag-check ng assessments. And then for opportunities, gaining interests of more faculty, lalong-lalo na yung mga nasa malalayong lugar, so they can teach all together kahit na nasa abroad, ganyan. And then yes, so faculty in charge mode being developed, and then from Professor Victor to carry on the STS as a course that will carry on the science learned from younger years. So ito yung backgrounder niya. He presented some opportunities and challenges that students can benefit from different experts as heterogeneity develops interactive and multiple discussions. So there's collaborative interaction, no, among different people. From Professor Alvaro, there is some good practices is one of which is the course preparation, UPLB learning style, no, yung face type learning style, and then sharing of best practices, personal attitudes and reflections of students as a means to give feedback to improving the resource materials and the learning and the teaching process. And then from Professor Miguel, nag-focus siya sa assessment. So nagbigay siya ng mga ilang paraan in order to assess student learning. So among them, critical essay, group project, and then the final pitch, which is beautiful. And then these are more outcome-based, no, kaysa dun sa multiple, halimbawa yung mga objective type of assessments. And then finally, from Professor Mark, student learning activities, interdisciplinary setting, in more practical situations like in community settings. And then he also emphasized on peer learning. Students who have those skills in different majors can also help or teach other students who are willing to learn. And then blended learning model, and also the concern or his advocacy on including soft skills to the course, to science courses. No? So STS is an avenue for this. And then for our question and answer, may mga concerns tayo tulad ng workload of students, the number of synchronous sessions. So may nagbigay halimbawa ng ilimit yung readings per topic. And then use alternative sources of information, kasi hindi masyadong maganda yung puros readings, lalong-lalo na very long readings. And then why the philosophical aspect of STS, no? So meron tayong ibinigay na responses among them that it satisfies the multidisciplinary objective of this course. And not only that, may nagbigay ng isa pang idea to be transdisciplinary. Okay, so in these cases, we should have a cross-pollination between fields. And then there is also the concern on group activities, and then some of the responses given that students with group activities are given the opportunity to have a sense of responsibility and to check on the work of their peers. So not only from the teacher nang gagaling ito, kundi pati doon sa mga peers nila. No? And group work, the group work as a learning outcome is also satisfied. There's also a concern on team teaching, and then getting students to be interested in the STS course. So among the responses would be to maximize learning platforms and injecting controversial and interesting topics to be debated upon by students, so it will arouse student interests. I don't know if I missed important things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, Jack. Now, there are more interesting things being written in our chat box, no? More philosophical, like from Sir Fidel, Sir Benji. But as we all know, this is just the first of maybe several activities that the GE program is designing for us to come together and do some feedbacking and learning from each other. So for now, we are very sorry that we have to end here. Thank you very much sa very active na participation ng lahat. Salamat sa mga panelist natin. Hindi ko na isa-isayin ng kanilang pangalan. Salamat sa nag-synthesize. Salamat kay Ma'am Nelfa for being the assistant moderator. Salamat sa technical group, no? You know, sila yung nagmamanage nagta-traffic ng ating videos. And we are now ready for a group photo op. So kindly show yourselves. And then after this, after this, Ma'am Pat.
Ngayon na lang po, ma'am, kasi para the photo op is the last thing.
Okay, sige po.
I just wanted, sabi ni ma'am, hindi na niya isa-isahin, pero kami we feel obliged to, it has been a very fruitful conversation. We would like to really express our appreciation. I'm speaking on behalf of the TWG on GE implementation, program implementation, as well as on behalf of Assistant Vice President Vanji Amor, who cannot be here because she's presenting at the BOR briefing. This has been a very interesting conversation. Actually, it's the 6th since we started yesterday, and there are several more coming. So before I thank everyone, I should do the thanking first. That's very important. Yeah, I want to say thank you so much, ma'am, for the very good, for the excellent moderation. It is very challenging, I know, when you have more than 100 people in the room and you can't see everybody. So we want to thank Professor Ruth Gamboa of UP Mindanao for moderating this session, and Professor Nelfa Globa for acting as the assistant moderator. Ma'am Nelfa also actually moderated the first session this morning on Com10. And of course, our panelists who gave very to the point initial presentations, and then participated in a lively discussion. Professor Jack Medrana, Professor Rene Rollon, Professor Victor M. Romero II, Professor Alvaro Calara, Professor Miguel Catalig, and Professor Mark Zarco. I hope I didn't miss a name. There was a name that flashed very briefly earlier. But in addition to our panelists, the panelists would, I think, not have had as good a time if the participants did not participate. It has been, if you look at the chat box, there's really an interesting discussion going on here as well. And so that, I think that's something to think about when we do our classes, especially those among us who have some kind of anxiety about doing the need to do synchronous sessions. I mean, it's the need is something we need to rethink. What really goes on when we're doing synchronous and asynchronous discussion, and where is the interesting discussion taking place, really and truly. And so there's many more things to explore, but we would like to, and so, to remind ourselves that this is just the first, I hope, the STS group in particular and the DR MAPS group can really look forward and try and get together more frequently, as well as the other courses, of course. But for this particular series, as I said, this afternoon's discussion is the 6th over the last 2 days. There will be another 2 days next week. Altogether 6 discussions as well. I think you were sent the schedule. But in addition, can I just plug the, there's a webinar, a forum on mathematics for human flourishing by the author of that book, which was published by Yale University Press. And that happens on May 4. So the GE Conversations will be May 5 and May 6. And then there will be a final couple of days in the series, the week after that, and we'll get to synthesize a bit at that point and consider the GE program in terms of its philosophy and all of the themes that that underpin all of the various courses. So I hope you can join us. Thank you very much, everyone. And we will have our photo op, please. So yeah, so Steph will tell us when to stop smiling. For now, we should be happy. I think the Chancellor Fidel was in the room and he invited us to another webinar happening right now, or at 3 p.m. Okay, Steph?
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4 more. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, that is a very... Oh, so yeah, there's more of us in this. Yeah.
Yes.
So maraming salamat po.
105 participants. Salamat.
I think this is the biggest group so far. So thank you very much. Sir Benji is speaking at 3 o'clock. If you saw the link, you can go there to that. You want to, yeah, it's in the chat box actually, the link to the webinar on science, culture, and history.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow pa. Akala ko ngayon na, napanik ako. Okay. Sige. Salamat. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Salamat po. Salamat.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Dapat po yung panel, wala ba?
Thank you. And thank you sa mga panel.
Salamat po. Sana magkita-kita tayo soon.
Oo nga eh.
Sige ba.
Dito lang tayo virtual.
Alright. Oo nga eh. Ang dami pang pwedeng pag-usapan.
Actually, masarap siya pag-usapan. Kaya lang parang ang hirap na 30 minutes lang or so.
Yeah. Okay, sige lang po.
Next time.
Part 2.
Next time ka lang.
Sige, ingat po
Salamat
kayong
sa
lahat.
lahat.
Sige.
Ingat po. Stay safe pa rin po. Salamat.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.